everyone, and welcome to today's deep dive. I am really excited you're joining us.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. We've got a great one today.
We really do. So today we're looking at a piece of source material that is, well, it's quite unique in its format.
Highly unique.
Right. It's a remarkably simple English conversation between two people discussing how they spend their free time.
Just an everyday chat.
Exactly. Emma and Alex. And actually, that's the last time we'll use their names today, too.
Oh, I like that. Keep the focus on the behavior.
Exactly. After that brief introduction, their dialogue just flows naturally. They use very short sentences, straightforward, simple English.
It almost reads like a foundational transcript.
Yeah.
There's no complex jargon.
So, okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to look past that straightforward, casual surface.
We want to find the behavioral patterns underneath.
Exactly. We are going to explore why we pursue specific hobbies, the psychological functions they serve, and what these seemingly mundane choices say about human nature.
And our profound need for downtime, which is, a highly relevant discussion right now.
Oh, absolutely.
We are navigating an era defined by just constant connectivity. In fact, the first speaker in our source explicitly points out that a major trap of modern life is spending way too much time scrolling on phones.
We've all been there.
Right. Because we are so saturated with information, how we choose to spend our remaining free time, it isn't just about fighting off boredom anymore.
What is it about then?
It becomes a critical mechanism for mental regulation and personal development.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's start with the most universal hobbies they discuss. Music and movies.
The classics.
The classics. We all know these are standard tools for unwinding. But these two individuals use them in remarkably distinct ways.
Very different approaches.
Right. The first speaker gravitates toward calm songs, specifically to reduce stress after a long day.
Okay.
But the second speaker listens to instrumental music, and they use it as a tool to focus while studying.
What's fascinating here is how these passive hobbies are being deployed for highly active physiological purposes.
Active purposes. But listening to music is so passive.
We tend to view it as merely background activity, sure.
Yeah.
But the first speaker is using it for active mood regulation.
Oh, I see.
They are consciously selecting an auditory input to downregulate their nervous system, lowering physiological stress levels.
Well, the second speaker is doing the opposite.
Exactly. Using instrumental music to manage cognitive load.
Wait, let's stick on that cognitive load idea for a second. You're saying they aren't just listening to music to make studying more pleasant.
Not at all. It's a functional tool.
How so?
Cognitive load refers to the amount of working memory resources your brain is using at any given moment. When you study background noise conversations, sudden sounds, those interrupt your focus. Your brain expends energy to refocus.
That is exhausting.
It is. By putting on instrumental music without lyrics that might distract the language centers of the brain, they are building a predictable sensory wall.
A sensory wall. I love that term.
They are controlling the environment to protect their focus.
That makes total sense. They are both manipulating their environments just for different end goals.
Exactly.
But then they share this detail that I think is incredibly relatable. They both admit they love singing along to music.
But only when they are completely alone.
Right. The second speaker actually states point blank that they are not a good singer.
Which is such an honest admission.
It is. And the response they get is great. The first speaker says singing is fun even if we're not perfect.
That exchange touches on a vital component of what a hobby actually provides.
What's that?
Well, think about our professional or academic lives. We are constantly measured, graded, evaluated, expected to perform.
Always on the clock.
Right. A hobby, ideally, is an arena where incompetence is not just acceptable, but completely devoid of consequence.
Let me push back on that a little, though.
Sure.
Because if incompetence is so acceptable, why do they both hide it? Why only sing when they're completely alone?
That is a very fair point.
It sounds like that pressure to be good at something still haunts us, even in our downtime.
We are so conditioned by a culture of performance that we often internalize that judgment, even when we know a hobby is just for fun.
We still feel the nudge to protect our early, imperfect attempts.
Exactly. We hide them from the eyes of others. One speaker has to actively remind the other, and maybe themselves, that perfection isn't the goal here. The joy of the act is the goal.
The joy of the act. You see a similar desire for a highly controlled, safe environment when they discuss their movie-watching habits.
Neither of them prefers going out to a theater, right?
Right. They both prefer watching at home.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the primary reason they give is that it's comfortable and you can pause at any time.
The pause button is an incredible psychological luxury.
It really is. One leans toward comedies because laughing relaxes them. The other mixes in some action. But the overarching theme is control.
Think about the typical workday. You don't control the schedule. You don't control the stressors.
You often don't even control the temperature of the room.
Exactly. Sitting on your own couch, choosing a specific genre to guarantee a specific emotional response.
Like choosing a comedy to guarantee a laugh.
Right. And knowing you can pause the entire experience whenever you want. That is a powerful form of psychological recovery.
So if you are listening to this on your commute right now or taking a walk, think about the audio you are currently piping into your ears.
Are you using it to escape and regulate your mood down?
Or are you using it to build a wall and lock in? It really reframes how you look at your own daily habits.
It moves these choices from being unconscious habits to deliberate strategies.
It's so interesting that music and movies provide that instant, highly controllable relief. Because when the conversation shifts to reading and learning new skills,
Suddenly you see this massive wall of friction appear
the dynamic completely changes.
because we are moving from passive consumption to active engagement. And that requires a significant shift in energy.
Let's talk about that. One speaker mentions they are a big reader. Storybooks, self-improvement books, usually just a few pages before bed.
A great habit,
But the other confesses that big books feel way too difficult to start.
a very common hurdle.
The advice they get is incredibly practical. Start with short books because they are easier and more fun in the beginning.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of behavioral change, that is a perfect description of the mechanics of habit formation.
How so?
They're running into the problem of activation energy.
Activation energy, like in chemistry.
Exactly like in chemistry.
Yeah.
It's the minimum amount of energy required to start a reaction.
Okay.
In psychology, it's the energy required to begin a task. A massive 1,000-page book presents a daunting cognitive threat.
The brain just looks at it and says, nope.
Right, it says, that is going to take too much energy, let's just look at our phone instead.
So by suggesting short books, they are advocating for lowering the barrier to entry.
It's not about the literary merit of the book. It's about the dopamine hit of actually finishing something.
You have to build the identity of being a reader first.
Precisely. You get a quick win with a short book, establish the routine of a few pages a night, and the momentum follows.
The habit has to be established before it can be expanded.
Right.
You see that exact same friction play out when they talk about learning new skills online.
The online courses.
Yes. One is taking courses on communication and basic design to prepare for the future. The other is trying to learn video editing.
Video editing can be tough.
They admit it's fun, but note how difficult it can be. And then we get a real reality check.
The guitar story.
Yes. They share that they tried learning the guitar last year, but completely stopped after a few months because they got too busy with their studies.
Which highlights the great contradiction of adult hobbies. We want the benefits of the skill, but we severely underestimate the consistency required to get through the initial learning curve.
But shouldn't a hobby be resilient? If they really enjoyed it, wouldn't they have made time for it, regardless of their studies?
Not necessarily,
Oh,
especially in the early stages.
why not?
When you first learn an instrument, it doesn't sound good. Your fingers physically hurt. The activation energy required just to pick it up is incredibly high.
So it feels like work.
Exactly. If your baseline stress and workload increase, like with heavy studies, those high-friction hobbies are the first things to get jettisoned.
They haven't reached the point where they are relaxing yet.
They still demand energy rather than returning it.
That makes their next strategy pretty ingenious, actually. The two birds, one stone hack.
Yes, the subtitle strategy.
They talk about watching English movies, but specifically using subtitles to learn new words and improve their language skills. Both speakers actually agree they do this. It's a brilliant workaround.
It's a classic example of habit stacking, or habit bundling.
Break that down for us. How is habit bundling different from just multitasking?
Multitasking is trying to split your conscious attention between two active tasks. That usually degrades your performance in both.
Right. Like texting while driving. Never a good idea.
Exactly. Habit bundling is taking a behavior you already want to do, something with very low activation energy, like watching a movie.
And attaching a higher friction habit to it.
Yes. They want to improve their language skills, which normally requires tedious study.
Hmm.
By pairing it with a movie, they eliminate the friction of starting.
They smuggle the learning into their downtime.
It's a great strategy.
It is, especially because it keeps them engaged. But it is interesting that the subtitle hack still keeps them glued to a screen.
True.
Because earlier, they explicitly brought up the modern trap of spending too much time on phones. Which brings us to the next phase of their conversation.
They shift completely away from screens and indoor isolation.
Right, from mental engagement to physical and social environments.
Let's talk about the sports they mentioned.
One talks about playing football once or twice a week, focusing on the physical sensation, mentioning how running on the field gives a ton of energy.
And the other plays badminton on the weekends.
Yes, but what stands out to me isn't the sport itself, it's what happens after the game. They know that they usually talk, laugh, and eat together with friends.
That post-game cooldown is arguably the primary function of the hobby.
Really? You think the sport is secondary?
I do. We know cardiovascular exercise is good for us, but in an increasingly isolated society, these sports serve as the physical infrastructure for social connection.
So the badminton is just an excuse to hang out.
In many ways, yes. As adults, it becomes increasingly difficult to just invite someone over to hang out without a structured reason.
It does feel a bit awkward sometimes.
We often need an alibi for our socialization. The badminton games provide that alibi.
A recurring structured event.
That guarantees a shared activity, which naturally bleeds into talking, laughing, and sharing a meal.
It's a Trojan horse for friendship.
Beautifully put.
And speaking of sharing a meal, they briefly bond over this shared idea that they should learn how to cook together someday.
And not mastering French cuisine.
No, not throwing a massive dinner party either. They specify wanting to cook something really simple, like pasta or noodles.
Notice how the complexity of the task is intentionally kept low, just like the short books recommended earlier.
Exactly. It's not about the culinary achievement. They even joke that the main goal is just getting to eat delicious food.
The framing is entirely collaborative.
It's about the shared experience of standing in a kitchen together, boiling some pasta, accomplishing a low-stakes task as a team.
It removes the performance anxiety. If you invite a friend over and try to cook a complex 5-course meal, your cognitive load is maxed out,
You're just stressed about burning the food.
and you aren't actually connecting with the person. By choosing simple pasta, the activity demands very little activation energy.
Leaving plenty of mental space for actual conversation.
Precisely.
This makes me want to pause and ask everyone listening to evaluate your own calendar. Look at the hobbies you engage in outside of your house.
Are they purely solitary pursuits?
Or do they serve as that social alibi? Do they naturally lead to those post-game moments of connection like the badminton matches do?
It is so easy to default to the isolation of our screens.
But building that physical infrastructure for socialization seems vital.
It is an essential audit of our time. We often think we are too busy for a weekly sports league, but we are actually starving for the community it provides.
Absolutely. Now, as the speakers wrap up their conversation, they move into a final category of hobbies. These are quieter, much more observant activities.
They really hint at a desire for deeper mindfulness and future growth.
A shift from consuming and socializing to processing and reflecting.
What do they mention specifically?
Well, one talks about taking up photography, specifically capturing nature and sunsets. They note how focusing on the amazing colors in the sky helps them notice the small details around them.
And the other?
The other shares that they write down short thoughts in a notebook to organize their mind.
These are two very different, yet highly effective, mechanical approaches to mindfulness.
How so? They seem completely unrelated on the surface. One is looking outward at a sunset, and the other is looking inward at a notebook.
They are different directions, yes, but they both interrupt the default mode network of the brain.
The default mode network, what is that?
It's that constant looping background anxiety we carry around. The photography uses the camera lens to force the brain into an external focus state.
You cannot worry about tomorrow's email while you are actively calibrating the light of a fading sunset.
It anchors you completely in the present physical environment.
And the notebook rating.
They are doing the inverse. They are taking the internal noise and externalizing it.
When thoughts are bouncing around, they feel overwhelming, unstructured.
Exactly. The physical act of writing forces you to linearize those thoughts. You have to put a subject before a verb.
It untangles the cognitive web.
Which is why they say it helps organize their mind.
It's fascinating that they intuitively found these tools. And they both agree that these hobbies, whether it's music, writing, or photography, improve creativity.
They give the mind a much-needed break.
They are also looking ahead to the future. One mentions wanting to learn painting because it's relaxing.
And the other.
The other wants to give a musical instrument, maybe the guitar, a proper try again. But this time, they explicitly acknowledge that they need to practice regularly.
They're recognizing the reality of the friction we discussed earlier.
They know now that the reward is on the other side of consistency.
Which brings us to the ultimate synthesis of their entire conversation.
They literally build on each other's sentences to define what these pursuits require.
Practice, patience, discipline.
And creativity. And they conclude that ultimately this cocktail of effort leads to happiness. One of them even states that a life without hobbies would be very boring.
It's a profoundly mature realization to arrive at from such a casual chat.
So what does this all mean? When we deconstruct this simple, everyday dialogue, we find a remarkably comprehensive blueprint for managing modern life.
We really do.
Whether you are using instrumental music to build a sensory wall for studying, relying on a weekly badminton game as a Trojan horse for human connection, or pushing through the friction of a short book to build a new identity.
Hobbies are not optional extras.
They are the active mechanisms we use to regulate our stress, forge our communities, and maintain our mental clarity.
They provide the necessary contrast to our obligations.
They absolutely do. So here is a challenge for you this weekend. Take a very practical page out of this source material.
Lower the barrier to entry.
If you have been intimidated by a massive project, find the equivalent of a short book and just get started. Or text a friend, lower the stakes, and see if they want to come over and boil some simple pasta.
Engage with the friction and reclaim your downtime.
And as you reflect on how you spend your free hours, consider this final thought.
Right. They concluded that engaging in these hobbies requires immense practice, patience, and discipline.
Hard work, essentially.
Exactly. If our so-called free time actually demands just as much hard work and consistency as our daily obligations, perhaps true happiness doesn't stem from the complete absence of labor.
That is a fascinating idea.
Perhaps true happiness is simply the luxury of finally getting to choose exactly what we want to work hard at.
The luxury of choosing our own labor, that is a brilliant way to frame it, and the perfect place to wrap up. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Go out there, embrace the discipline of your downtime, and we will catch you on the next one.